Well, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us here again in our podcasts as we kind of move into 2024.
Already.
Yeah. We're continuing on with a series that we actually started in the fall of 2023 called Thriving in Community. And we actually started this on Sunday. And so we're continuing that. And it's going over what Dr. Jim Wilder and Michael Hendricks coined as the 4 ingredients needed for a truly flourishing community as well as discipleship.
So this is part 3.
This is part 3 of that, where so the first 2 parts we did talk about the first 2 ingredients. Yep. One was joy, and the second one was hesed, and we're actually going to cover that a little bit again, just in this particular podcast. And really the whole point is that our discipleship needs to move beyond what they describe as a left brain dominant process. So we've kind of talked about that throughout the earlier part of this series, things like truth, better choices, which again are good. So all that kind of, again, left brain dominant processes and strategies for spiritual formation, maturity, character, and development.
Yeah, and so I think this is where church normally focuses.
Absolutely, yeah.
There are things that we can write courses for and have checklists for and track people's practices. But in fact, Dr. Jim Wilder and the studies he's done on the brain and through general neuroscience, we find that growth in maturity and character actually happen on the right side of the brain.
That's right. So instead of merely kind of retooling left brain processes, which is something we do and quite often and can be helpful, we really need to start to develop sort of right brain processes. And so that's really where we find kind of what we're talking about, which, we're using the book, The Other Half of Church, as a launching point, written by Michael Hendricks and Dr. Jim Wilder. And basically they kind of write about we need to become whole brain Christians.
Right.
And so, yes, definitely having that left brain truth, good choices type of stuff that we tend to dominate on, but really bringing in this right brain, which is much more relational stuff. And so this is what we're talking about within this series. And so this is the 3rd ingredient,
which is group identity.
Group identity. So you kind of
I launched this last Sunday. So let's talk about that. What is group identity? So basically, identity, as we're describing it here, is how we respond to different circumstances or situations. So it's the sort of automatic responses we have.
Yeah.
So we would sometimes call them triggers or buttons. Someone pushes my buttons in a certain circumstance, and I get angry, or I get sad, or I feel compassionate, or it's just how I respond in different situations and circumstances. We find out from Dr. Wilder that these are actually formed relationally on the right side of our brains. Now, what does that really mean? It means that our brain sort of has this filter, and when presented with circumstances or situations, it asks itself the question, how do my people respond? And so, the first question I have is who are my people? So our identity is formed relationally with those we feel we belong to or are connected with, where one, we experience joy and loving attachment by watching how they respond. So in childhood, this is primarily your family. And when you get to your teenage years, there's sort of a transition where your social bonds change and it becomes more your friends and other long-term relationships. So good news is your identity, how you respond to things can change depending on who your people are.
Right.
So for followers of Jesus, typically that's our community of other followers of Jesus, or we would call that our church community you attend. But I really want to make the point here, it's not just attending, it's the relationships that are formed where you can see Christian character lived out.
Right. And so this particular video, as we kind of move into these characteristics of group identity, is actually kind of covering really briefly the first 2 ingredients.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we do that because we really can't establish our group identity until we understand, and it's built on the first 2. So I think it's appropriate for us to review those today.
Yeah, and I think it's just also understand that these ingredients, specifically these ingredients of joy and hesed, are kind of this weird interlock thing. As much as they're the ingredients, they're also characteristics of the group identity.
Exactly.
And that's why they are the first two we covered, and then why we're the first two before we move into other ones we covered. We can't stress these enough. This is a basic
and
thing.
I alluded to it before, but really the joy and your attachment, love, determines who your people are. So,
all right. So I think I want to encourage people when we talk about joy and hesed, that they if you have not watched the videos, to go back, this videos, Sunday sermons, and to kind of learn more about these ingredients, because we're going to really just kind of really skim it and just really kind of just a key aspect of kind of both joy and hesed. So let's start with joy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one of the characteristics of joy that we've talked about, and actually builds joy, is gratitude.
It's gratitude. Yeah.
So in Ephesians, Paul is encouraging the readers of that letter with group identity. And in chapter 5 and verse 20, he actually says, "And give thanks for everything to God the Father in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ." Mm. So a key important characteristic that Paul's even saying to this church, these followers of Jesus, is gratitude. And it's gratitude that builds joy. And so when we talk about using kind of like the idea where you brought up, who your people are, this is the chance where we can say we are a people, who my people are, who build joy.
Build joy with each other.
So we take time in our lives to express our gratitude. Mm-hmm. That might mean taking time in prayer, expressing that gratitude to God, much like we see modeled through the Psalms.
Sure.
Psalm 107, verse 1, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever." So there's that right there, that model, giving thanks for God's goodness. Mm-hmm. Also, we're going to talk about hesed in a little bit here, but he's also giving thanks for God's hesed, or his faithful love. Yeah. So one of the things that we've talked about in the idea of creating gratitude is making gratitude lists. Mm. Taking time, however you want to do that. Maybe it's a daily thing. Maybe it's a couple times a week, whatever that is. But taking times to just kind of think about the things we are grateful for. So we get one doing the model of, we see in Psalms, just thanking God for those things. Right. But just creating lists for ourselves. Just something that happened in the day. I'm really thankful that I got to go out with coffee with Hudson today. Mm-hmm. And that's just that time that we could spend together. And I think that's really, really important. It's taking that time to just make lists, whatever that might look like.
And for me, I use my phone quite a bit for this. And I've got a list on there now of specific things and people that I'm thankful for. There's also certain circumstances and memories that bring me joy.
That's a big one.
And so those are the things that where if I think about it, I can be grateful to God even for the good things that are happening in my life and how he might be talking to me through those things.
And I think the power of the lists in gratitude is it does slow us down and take time to think and put it down. The other thing having a list there is there can be times where it's really helpful just to read elements or things on the list that can be helpful just to remind ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, like having certain memories. Like sometimes sometimes it's not taking a day to write a memory. Sometimes it's taking a day to read one or two.
Sure, yeah.
That can be really helpful. I think the other two, we are, making that, again, you said, people we're grateful for, but also then expressing that gratitude to people.
Sure.
We can express it to each other.
Yep. And can be a phone call, can be a letter, can be an email. A letter. Some people write letters anymore.
Well,
I was trying to find a pen the other day. Nope.
Yeah, actually, I had to sign a permission kind of slip for my daughter this morning, and I had to use a marker.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you're into letters, you can do postcards. You can etch it on the side of a. Yeah. Don't etch it on the side of a building. Maybe
no, don't do that.
Don't deface things. Anyway, we can express it to each other because it's actually. When we do that also is that we build the joy in ourselves, but we also, when we express our gratitude to others, especially if that person, you're expressing your gratitude for that person, you can actually build joy in them.
Yeah, it's contagious.
So we are a people then who express gratitude to each other. We are people who also express gratitude and joy in the midst of difficulties.
Yeah, and this sometimes seems a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
in that, something bad's happening. What can I think of that's good? But just revisiting things that we know are good and that have given us joy in the past and that we are thankful for does help us realize that God is with us and he promised to continue to be with us even when things are not going 100% the way we want them.
Yeah, I think it helps us process healthily. It also helps us endure. Mm-hmm. Like it's sometimes it's as much as we'd like to say, please take us out of the thing. Sometimes it helps us endure as we go through the thing.
Sure.
And that joy becomes part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So joy is built through the practice of gratitude, and it is really important to group identity. Mm. So, I mean, is there any other ways you practice joy? You talked about lists, memories.
Yeah, I think it's just spending time with people.
Yeah.
I mean, the joy we're talking about is relational. I think maybe we just need to revisit our definition of joy, which is, as they say in the book, is when you see someone and their face lights up, that showing that they're happy that you've entered the room or they're happy to see you. What that does inside us is cause us to have joy. So I think one of the great things about that is sometimes just even if you're not feeling great, just being with somebody else can help you feel joy. So for me, it's I really like. I'm an introvert, so I do appreciate the time on my own. But I think for me, I really need to in order to feel joy, to make sure I make room to be with other people.
Yeah. No, and for me, it's a similar thing. I think I'm trying to make sure, as I can sometimes just kind of be my mind in a million different places, making sure that I take time and make sure that it's expressed on my face when I'm happy to see someone. Because sometimes I actually think it, but it's like, oh, I'm happy to see them, and then I'm already on, or it just that it's a split second, and I'm already thinking about the thing that I need to do over here, or I'm, I don't know, I'm trying to solve the world philosophical problems in my own head, and just sort of like, oh, maybe I want to make sure that they see on my face that I am happy to be with them.
Yeah, so you got to watch out for your resting face sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think, again, we've mentioned already making the list, and that's, for me, making that a habit every day has been very helpful to me.
Yeah, me too. All right, and so then the second kind of characteristic as far as group identity that we want to talk about today is Hesed. Once again, we did the second part of the series on that, and so we're just kind of to give you more depth. Please go and look at those videos and Sunday sermons, especially if you haven't seen those yet. So kind of on Hesed, again, kind of like the key characteristic of joy is gratitude. With Hesed, it's faithfulness.
I think the word Hesed actually translates into faithful or self-sacrificing love.
Well, that's just it. Quite often scholars don't leave Hesed simply as love. It gets sometimes the word faithful.
Yeah, so it's
steadfast.
Not brotherly love or romantic love.
Right.
It's this is more in a way that is showing a long-term faithfulness or even putting others ahead of yourself.
That's right. Yeah. If we look again at the psalm that we looked at earlier, Psalm 107, verse 1, the writer is expressing gratitude for God's faithful, enduring love.
Right.
Also in the New Testament, when pointing out this kind of love, Paul would write, basically, we need to show this kind of love, the love demonstrated by God through Jesus. And he writes this in Ephesians 5, verse 1 and 2, says, imitate God. Therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children, live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. So this faithful love that is defined by secure attachment, or another way I think we can put it is something to be counted on.
So it definitely is something that is relational. It's in a relationship, whether it be a friend or a spouse or a coworker. When you have that capability or you can count on someone to be there for you, so that you are adding that element of faithfulness and enduring to this, to the relationship. That's when you have what we've called there the secure attachment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just sort of like counted on, like I count on this person to do this task. It's I can count them to be relationally present.
Yeah, for me.
And I like
for them.
Yes, I like this understanding of love because it's not this flowery butterflies kind of love. Which again, I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah.
But it is really this love that's defined by enduring and steadfast, kind of the rubber meets the road kind of love.
Yeah.
So just to give it sort of the idea of around identity, we are a people who are faithful to God in the good and hard times.
Yep.
We are a people who try to model the faithful love that Jesus models to us. And we are people who show faithful relational attachments because it's important for developing identity and character. So we really want to be a people who can be there for each other and that we can count on each other. And that's kind of basically the idea of this, this identity of Hesed.
Yeah, and it's not a fleeting thing. We have to really understand that in order for group identity to be to happen, it has to be over a period of time, because we have to be able to be part of a loving attachment that is secure over a period of time, so we can see how our people act. And for me, it's extremely important to understand this isn't something that's fleeting or happens, where I drop into town and I catch up with someone I haven't seen for 20 years. And yeah, we can catch up and pick up where we left off, but it doesn't really fit with what we're trying to accomplish here with character transformation, which requires me to be in proximity with people on a regular basis.
Yeah, and again, it is that sort of example that you gave. Like, yeah, that's a good thing to be able to,
absolutely,
have that sort of stuff. But yeah, we are definitely in this instance talking about a faithful kind of love. That I think like that the idea it's a proximity, not to knock any of those relationships. No, I have some,
me too,
that I can count on. But like, yes, this is about proximity. I'm trying to think of the word here, but just continual kind of there. Kind of maybe not every day, depending upon obviously schedules, but it's just it's regular.
It's regular, and I think the easiest way to understand from the group identity perspective is we need to be able to see how our group acts, and it gets modeled to us in a tangible and visible way, and that's what affects the right side of our brain, as opposed to just someone telling me something, information, which appeals to the left side of my brain.
And that's why these two character traits in the idea of group identity are also the ingredients.
Yeah.
It's because they play an important part of the modeling kind of idea. And so we need joy and we need Hesed for the modeling to even work. So we need joy and Hesed to be able to model joy and Hesed.
Exactly.
It's kind of this together. And as well as these things, why we kind of start off with these characteristics in group identity as we move on is because these do need to be happening and building for the other ones to sort of really take root in each other.
And that's what I think we need to remind ourselves continually is all four ingredients have to be in place. Without one, character transformation is either limited or doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're again, we've done a very quick overview of fueled by joy and attachment, love, or Hesed. And again, I would encourage you to maybe if you're hearing this for the first time today, to go back and listen to or watch some of those videos, and you can. We go into a much deeper dive on them, and you come to a greater understanding. So. As we move forward here now and going into group identity, we're going to be talking about some of the actions and behaviors that followers of Jesus then will model for each other. And we're going to take our time over the next few weeks, both in our in-person gatherings on Sunday and in this venue, sort of with the podcast. We're going to be working through a bunch of them and determining we are a people who, and we're going to fill in the blanks on that. So please join us for those. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe. It does help us with the channel here, and Happy New Year. We're looking forward to being here with you for the rest of the series.